Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour. Manhunt on for gunman who kills 22 people in the U.S. state of Maine, more than a dozen injured. Netanyahu says in a televised speech that Israel is preparing for a ground invasion of Gaza, war cabinet and military to decide when and how. US-backed resolution on Israel-Hamas war fails to pass in the UN Security Council. 193-member UN General Assembly to now vote on a non-binding resolution drafted by Arab states.
Israel has the right, and I would add responsibility, to respond to the slaughter of their people. And we will ensure Israel has what it needs to defend itself against these terrorists. That's a guarantee.
And India to resume some visa services in Canada amid a diplomatic row over the killing of a Khalistani terrorist in that country. First up, the latest on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Israeli military on Thursday operated inside northern Gaza, attacking multiple Hamas targets. In a statement posted online, the Israeli military said that the incursion was carried out in preparation for the next stages of combat.
As the Israel-Gaza conflict reaches its 20th day, Israel prepares for a potentially decisive ground invasion into Gaza. The Israeli government convened a war cabinet meeting in Tel Aviv. Before the meeting, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in a televised address, expressed Israel's intention to enter Gaza.
We are raining hellfire on Hamas. We have already killed thousands of terrorists, and this is only the beginning. Simultaneously, we are preparing for a ground invasion. I will not elaborate on when, how, or how many.
Overnight, the IDF conducted a targeted raid using tanks in the northern Gaza Strip as part of preparations for the next stages of combat. The activity was commanded by the Givati Brigade. During the activity, soldiers located and struck numerous terror infrastructure and anti-tank missile launch posts and operated to prepare the battlefield. The soldiers exited the area at the end of the activity. Israeli chief military spokesperson Daniel Hagari emphasized in his regular briefing that the conflict with Hamas is likely to be protracted.
This war will be long, and in order to meet the goals of this war, we need resilience, we need faith, we need patience.
In the international arena, US President Joe Biden, who has been a supporter of Israel throughout the conflict, reiterated Israel's right to defend its citizens.
Israel has the right, and I would add responsibility, to respond to the slaughter of their people. And we will ensure Israel has what it needs to defend itself against these terrorists. That's a guarantee.
Amid the ongoing conflict, Israeli rabbis and representatives of individuals believed to be kidnapped and held by Hamas fighters gathered in Jerusalem. They came together in a global day of prayer and unity event held on a rooftop in the Old City, praying for the release of the hostages. On Wednesday, an Israeli airstrike hit a multi-floor residential building in Gaza City. Israel started its aerial blitz against Gaza after Hamas militants stormed southern Israeli towns in a shock infiltration.
And DD India's Amit Pal Singh filed this report from Jerusalem. Take a look.
Even as the Israel-Hamas war enters its 20th day, Israel has intensified its military campaign, with it launching a brief ground raid on Wednesday night, saying that is to prepare the battlefield for a ground invasion. Benjamin Netanyahu made it clear that Israel will go in for a ground assault, but he did not share details about when and how. In fact, he said his exact words were, "It is a battle for our existence." Even while international pressure mounts on Israel not to go in for a ground invasion, because that would mean a steep climb in civilian casualties, but Israel does not care. The UN Security Council vote was vetoed by China and Russia for a brief pause, saying it requires a complete ceasefire. And Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, has warned that the conflict could spill over. In fact, it's already showing signs of escalating and spilling over, with the Israeli warplanes again bombarding Syrian military targets after it hit the Aleppo and the Damascus airports and bombarded them, saying weapons were being supplied to Hezbollah in Lebanon from there. And also, the battlefield has opened to a limited extent with Lebanon because of the intermittent exchanges between Hezbollah and the Israeli army in the north. And this is beyond the Palestinian territories. Now the threat looming large, apart from the evolving humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip, is that the conflict could spill over into the wider area, with other state and non-state actors joining in. With cameraman SP Dubey, this is Amit Pal Singh for DD India in Jerusalem.
Dr. Roy Tanna joins us from Israel. Dr. Tanna works for an AI analytics and technology company. Dr. Tanna, welcome to DD India News Hour. Now, it's day 20 of Israel's war with the Hamas. How have you and your loved ones coped with the after effects of this war?
It is very difficult. It is very difficult. And I want just to tell you Israel's side and what's happening here. Just 3 weeks ago, terrorists have infiltrated peaceful Jewish villages inside Israel's territory, and they have massacred innocent civilians indiscriminately. They've killed more than 1,000 Israeli citizens. They've tortured women. They've raped women. They beheaded young children. They've abducted more than 200 Israelis, grandmothers and mothers and young children, to Gaza, where they are keeping them still under conditions unknown. And even today, Hamas is still shooting missiles towards the center of Israel. And I can tell you that just a few days ago, my family and I, 2 young children, my wife, we had to go into our bomb shelter ourselves and stay there in fear of our lives. So, and unlike what's happening right now in the Gaza Strip, where Israel is warning the Palestinian civilians in advance before it's striking, Hamas did not try to warn us in advance. Israel is targeting military infrastructures in the Gaza Strip, but Hamas does not target military infrastructures. It aims its missiles right now at civilian targets. And that's what life in Israel is right now. And the only reason that Israel is not in shambles right now is that we have the power and the technology to prevent it. So we cannot lay down our arms, and we cannot leave our children in Hamas' hands the way it is right now. That's what life is in Israel right now, most unfortunately.
Indeed. Dr. Tanna, as you mentioned, there seems to be no let-up in Israel's attacks on Gaza or the Hamas's attacks on Israel. So is the world now looking at a long, protracted war?
I'm afraid that I cannot share details about what's going on in the war cabinet in Israel for obvious reasons. I can tell you that Israel is acting both ethically and with great care in every assault it is making on the Gaza Strip, targeting military infrastructures and Hamas headquarters, attempting to get to the leaders who are responsible for that heinous crime against humanity that opened this war. So the question that you're asking, is the war going to be protracted? That's in Hamas leaders' hands. They can let go of their kidnapped Israeli citizens. They can let go of the Palestinian civilians that they use as meat shields, and they can stand trial for their crimes against humanity. If they do not do that, then yes, we will remain at war with them until every innocent Israeli child has been returned from captivity to Israel.
Dr. Susanna, can I request you to stay on, please, momentarily? I want to bring in my colleague who is joining us live from Jerusalem now. I'll come back to you in a minute or so. Amrit, fill us in on the latest on the Israel-Hamas war. Are the Israeli military and the Hamas keeping up attacks on each other?
That's right, Ramesh. They are keeping up the attacks on each other. The Israeli military, as I filed in my report, last night went in for a ground invasion, a larger invasion that they had attempted before. About 4 days back, they had attempted a similar thing, but on a much smaller scale, and had suffered a casualty of 1 soldier, 3 critically injured. But yesterday, they went in with tanks and, tried to bombard with, the ground invasion. The IDF says this is preparing ground for the bigger invasion or the bigger ground assault. And they basically were testing waters as to, what would be the strategy to enter in and gauge the kind of resistance they would encounter, and also signaling to the Hamas that, we will come in. So they did that. They have kept up the airstrikes and the missile strikes. Last night was a fierce, the Israeli warplanes fiercely pounded the Gaza Strip. Hamas retaliated by firing rockets into into Israel. Most of them missed their targets because they are intercepted by the Israeli Iron Dome systems. But some of them do fall near buildings, etc. Though it's not causing much damage to life and property.
Right.
Yeah, they are keeping up both sides, Ramesh.
Amrit, thank you. That was my colleague Amit Pal Singh reporting live from Jerusalem. I'm afraid that's all we have time for. May I thank our special guest as well, Dr. Roy Tanna, for joining us on this special broadcast. Appreciate it. The UN Security Council has rejected 2 resolutions on the Israel-Hamas war. The US and Russia each put forward a draft calling for the Council to address shortages of food, water and other necessities in Gaza. But Russia's resolution demanded a humanitarian ceasefire, something the US has not supported. Sally Patterson reports from New York City.
Negotiations were going on right up to the last minute, with the scheduled Security Council meeting pushed back to allow talks to continue. Russia had already said it would not support the US draft resolution, given the absence of language calling for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. The US argues any ceasefire will give Hamas the ability to rest and get ready to continue launching attacks against Israel. Instead, it called for humanitarian pauses to allow aid to get into Gaza. Now, Russia then put forward its own alternative text for representatives to vote on. Speaking before the vote, the US said their resolution was strong and balanced, and they had listened to all members. They said Russia had put forward their resolution in bad faith. But Russia said its draft wasn't political and accused the US of playing politics. Meanwhile, China accused the US of ignoring member states and having double standards, calling the draft out of balance. Both China and Russia vetoed the resolution. Russia's draft also didn't get enough votes to pass. This was the second time in 10 days the Council considered drafts on the crisis in the Middle East. It so far failed to adopt any resolutions on the recent escalations in Israel and Gaza. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. At least 22 killed in mass shootings in the U.S. state of Maine. India resumes some visa services for Canadians from Thursday. And the Indian Army Chief speaks about leveraging technology for success on the battlefield.
Distinguished women scientists who played a stellar role in successful launch of mission Chandrayaan-3.
Hard work, resilience, and being perfect. The brighter young minds we have, the future is going to be better.
We should capitalize this moment and we should take the children forward. I think they are the future of our country.
There is much more needs to be explored and understood.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. European Union leaders will gather in Belgium on Thursday for a two-day meeting of the European Council. The leaders have a packed agenda which includes the situation in West Asia, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and agreeing on the next EU budget. Alex Cadier joins us from Brussels. Alex, will the 27 countries issue a joint statement calling for a ceasefire or a pause in fighting to allow more aid to enter Gaza?
Well, your question summarizes the problem very clearly. What are they going to call for? Now, I can tell you they are not going to call for a ceasefire. That word will almost certainly not be used. It's deemed too contentious and would be interpreted as a lack of support for Israel. The question is whether or not they ask for a humanitarian pause, humanitarian pauses, or other forms of language to that effect. And that seems like splitting hairs. It might seem like quibbling over language, but again, you have 27 different countries coming together to try and agree a common position, which certainly with an issue as contentious as this is unique in the world. Now, it seems likely some of the country member states, Germany, Czech Republic, that have been reluctant to adopt this language, reluctant to call for that humanitarian pause, have started to show signs that possibly they will be on board to seek that language and actually achieving what the United Nations has not yet been able to agree. So it would be a real step forward for the European Union agreeing that language. Some countries, as I said, very sensitive to being seen as still supporting Israel despite calling for this humanitarian pause. Germany chief among them. So certainly a lot of debate, a lot of contentious issues. There are some countries, Ireland, Spain, which are much more forceful in their approach. They want to see the humanitarian pause called for. Now, even if all of this is agreed after much debating between 27 heads of state and government, the real question is whether or not Israel will listen.
Alex, has the Russia-Ukraine conflict been put on the back burner?
If you ask EU officials, they say very clearly no. They are clear that President Zelensky will address the leaders today via video link, that the support for Ukraine by the European Union is unwavering, steadfast, it will not change. They are still quibbling over that new 500 million euro funding package that Hungary is still opposing, and therefore the EU is not able to send to Ukraine, but that support is still there. And you see a number of member states very clearly saying that their support will not waver. Baltic countries like Estonia, Eastern European countries like Poland making it clear we are not going anywhere. Ukraine will have our support. Now, it may have been bumped away from the political spotlight. It is clear this summit will be focused on Israel and the situation in the Middle East. But in practical terms, in policy terms, in money terms, the support is definitely still there, and the EU making it clear there is no fatigue among member states. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is a threat to Europe, and they will stand by Ukraine as long as it takes.
Alex, thank you. Alex Cadier reporting there from Brussels. An emergency alert has been sounded in the U.S. state of Maine after 22 people were killed and dozens injured in mass shootings. The suspect is still at large. Here's a report.
Another mass shooting rocked the United States on Wednesday. This time the target was the northeastern U.S. state of Maine, where shooting incidents were reported at multiple locations. At least 22 people were killed and over 50 were wounded.
That approximately 6:56 this evening, a couple of shooting incidents occurred here with multiple casualties in the city of Lewiston. And police are currently searching for a Robert R. Card.
The injured were taken to nearby hospitals. Police are still on the hunt for the shooter and found a vehicle which they believe was used in the crime at Maine. Lewiston, Maine Police Department released pictures of the suspect, a bearded man in a long-sleeved shirt and jeans, holding a rifle in the firing position. The department also released a picture of a white SUV with a dark front bumper and asked the public to call in any tips. Leaders and politicians in the U.S. have repeatedly held debates on reforming gun laws in the country, as mass shootings have become a major problem. Some are pressing for stricter laws against gun possession, while others dub it as the right to carry arms for self-defense.
Now, India has resumed visa services to Canadians for select categories from Thursday, more than a month after it had suspended it following tensions with the North American country. The Indian High Commission in Ottawa said that the High Commission and the consulates in Toronto and Vancouver have decided to resume visa services for 4 categories: entry, business, medical and conference. It said that emergency situations would be addressed by the High Commission and consulates. India's Foreign Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar, who is on a 2-day visit to Kyrgyzstan, addressed the 22nd session of the Council of Heads of Government of the SCO, that's the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, at Bishkek. He highlighted that the SCO session at Bishkek, India shares deep civilizational ties with the people of this region. The SCO should work together to promote stability and prosperity in the region. The SCO should strictly adhere to the principles of international law. He says India is among the top 10 exporters in the world, and India is also hosting an SCO startup forum. And Minister Jaishankar, in his address to this meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in the Kyrgyz capital of Bishkek, called for working together for stability around the world. Take a listen.
Rising tensions and increasing number of hotspots around the world. This has sharply spiked volatility and placed significant strain on global economic growth. Therefore, we at SCO should work together to promote stability and prosperity in the region by strictly adhering to principles of international law, respecting sovereignty and territorial integrity, and encouraging economic cooperation.
Indian Army Chief General Manoj Pandey delivered the keynote address during the curtain raiser of the Chanakya Defence Dialogue in New Delhi on Thursday, where he spoke about the challenges and opportunities in the Indo-Pacific, and also said that for the Indian Army, the key takeaway from the Ukraine conflict was a need to completely be self-reliant.
So let me upfront say that modernization and technology infusion is central to our capability development programs and initiatives. And our attempt has been to leverage especially the niche and disruptive technologies to achieve better battlefield effects. And in that context, you mentioned of the startups, the young, bright minds that you have. How can you leverage their capability? How soon and how quickly, and which manner is, I think, the key. So what have we done? We've identified 45 niche technologies that we need to follow. And in each of this, we have listed out as to how we will progress. There are, I think, close to 120 indigenous projects pertaining to niche technologies which are currently at different stages of fruition.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday chaired a meeting for reviewing the progress on projects involving the national and state governments. He reviewed 8 key projects spread across 7 states. He said a national portal along with technology such as satellite imagery can help address issues related to location and land requirements for projects. The Election Commission of India has appointed Indian actor Rajkumar Rao as its national icon. An MOU was signed with the Election Commission to promote voter education and turnout. Poster for Special Summary Revision 2024 was also released by the Commission and the actor. The Special Summary Revision 2024 will begin on 1st January next year.
As an actor, I portrayed a variety of roles, each with its unique challenges and stories. But today I take on a role that transcends the silver screen. I step into the shoes of a messenger. Today I'm not standing here to promote any film, to promote any series. I'm standing here to promote the most important aspect of our democracy, which is voting.
Take a look at some other stories making news in India. The Indian Air Force signed a contract for buying automatic weather stations that provide real-time weather updates during flying operations and training. It's also working on upgrading its Sukhoi 30 MKI fleet with an indigenous advanced radar called Virupaksha. There's been no improvement in New Delhi's air quality on Thursday as pollution levels were recorded as poor for the 4th day in a row. Pollution levels are likely to worsen with the start of the winter season as cold, heavy air traps vehicle emissions, smoke and dust. Meanwhile, Kolkata's skyline glittered with bright specks of light on Wednesday night as 600 drones took to the skies in the city. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Asian stocks fall after a renewed spike in longer-dated US bond yields. And the United Auto Workers and Ford reach a tentative deal for ending a 6-week-long strike.
Distinguished women scientists who played a stellar role in successful launch of mission Chandrayaan-3.
Hard work, resilience, and being perfect. The brighter young minds we have, the future is going to be better.
We should capitalize this moment and we should take the children forward. I think they are the future of our country.
There is much more needs to be explored and understood.
Distinguished women scientists who played a stellar role in successful launch of mission Chandrayaan-3.
Hard work, resilience, and being perfect. The brighter young minds we have, the future is going to be better.
We should capitalize this moment and we should take the children forward. I think they are the future of our country.
There is much more needs to be explored and understood.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibilities. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. Manhunt on for gunman who kills 22 people in the U.S. state of Maine, more than a dozen injured. Netanyahu says in a televised speech that Israel is preparing for a ground invasion of Gaza, war cabinet and military to decide when and how. And India to resume some visa services in Canada amid a diplomatic row over the killing of a Khalistani terrorist in that country. The conflict between Israel and the Palestinian group, the Hamas, entered its 20th day on Thursday. More than 7,900 people have been killed in the conflict that began on 7th October. Here's a report.
These pictures take Yonan Miles, a father of twins, down the memory lane.
These are some of them. The children.
He describes Kibbutz as a place full of life and happiness. But things changed after October 7.
This is the house of my family. I've been here like a month ago with my twins. We came to celebrate this family reunion. We were sitting here doing some games and we were all celebrating. It was Saturday morning.
These blindfolded teddy bears on the streets of Tel Aviv symbolically represent missing children kidnapped by Hamas. It has been 3 weeks since these Israeli families have been anxiously waiting for their loved ones. Hamas has taken more than 200 people hostage after the attack. Pain and grief resemble also on the other side of the border. Buildings have fallen like house of cards, leaving thousands homeless. It's screaming and moaning everywhere in Gaza. There's no electricity, lack of drinking water. Hospitals are running out of fuel. This school in Gaza has turned into a shelter home for Palestinian refugees. But these children are hoping for a better tomorrow. Abhishek Bose for DD India.
And going back to the top story, the mass shootings in the U.S., Mr. Atul Aneja joins us. Mr. Aneja is the editor of India Narrative, a news website headquartered in New Delhi. Mr. Aneja, welcome to DD India News Hour. Another gunman, another senseless killing. Now, mass shootings have become all too common in the U.S. At least 22 people are reported dead in the latest such incident in the U.S. state of Maine. Tragic, is it not? How do you view it?
Extremely tragic, Ramesh. You know, as you said, they are having these mass shootings are taking place with such regularity that is alarming as to why its underlying causes, reasons why these take place are not being addressed. And I think it's a overall national failure in the United States not to get a grip on the loss of such innocent lives in such tragic circumstances.
In the instant case, Mr. Aneja, the suspect, we are told, is still very much at large. What do we know so far about the suspect and his motivation?
Well, there's not too much which is coming out about the shooter. His name is Card, and he has been a military instructor, if I recall, and he had also had under psychiatric treatment for being treated for hallucinations. So obviously, the release of such a character, into the open, especially a person who is well versed with the use of automatic weapons in a country where there is hardly any gun control, it was really something which was asking for disaster, and that is what we have got now. I think more than 20 odd people killed, several dozens injured, and the assassin, killer, whatever word you want to use, is still at large. Colossal failure and extreme tragedy, Mish.
Indeed. Now, gun violence, Mr. Aneja, in the U.S. has been a persistent issue for many, many years now. There's been a dramatic increase in such cases under the Biden government itself. Now, sample this. More than 50 people die every day from a firearm-related injury in the U.S. Now, this, according to data from a U.S. government agency called the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Drug Administration. Now, is gun laws at all an election issue in the U.S., given that we are a little more than a year away from the next presidential election?
Oh, it's a very, very important election issue, Ramesh. And if you recall, former President Trump was totally opposed to any kind of gun control, citing it as a First Amendment, as a fundamental right of Americans to carry firearms. Apart from that, Ramesh, we also have the very strong lobby groups which are opposed to any kind of gun control. The National Rifle Association, for example, is such a powerful lobby group that it has been consistently obstructing any kind of laws which would limit the sale and access to shotguns and even automatic weapons. So you have large commercial interests coming over here. You are having political issues, polarization coming on this issue. There is a tradition element. And Ramesh, on top of that is also, I think, an overall societal decay which is taking place in the United States. You know, if you combine this with the abuse of drugs and narcotics, attempts to legalize some of it. I mean, it's just a full ecosystem which is causing this kind of violence with such regularity. And I think we need to look at this holistically, looking at all dimensions of it, which is causing it. But even though there have been studies which are looking at it in a holistic manner, but there is no political will to enforce it and to risk your electoral future. So it's a lot of opportunism which goes behind it, despite the words which have been spoken, frankly, by the Democrats and President Biden himself.
Mr. Aneja, thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
In business news, Asian stocks fell on Thursday morning as the sentiment got hurt by a renewed spike in longer-dated U.S. bond yields. Asian markets also saw a broad sell-off, with Japan and South Korean benchmark indices leading the losses in the region, while Australian shares closed at a low not seen in more than a year. The Indian markets on Thursday opened in negative territory, tracking weaknesses from global stocks and continued tensions in West Asia. All 13 major sectoral indices logged losses. High weightage banks and information technology lost 1% and 1.5%. The more domestically focused small and mid caps lost over 3% and 2% respectively. India's unified payments interface system has won praise from the U.S. Treasury official Jay Shambaugh, who said that the UPI stands out in advancing bilateral links with other countries, including Singapore and the UAE. Referring to India, he said that some jurisdictions with strong bilateral economic partnerships are going further and interlinking their fast payment systems. He added that UPI also enables settlement of payments across networks. Shambaugh also hailed the G20 payments roadmap, saying that it has channeled efforts for near-term growth. The United Auto Workers and the Ford Company have reached a tentative contract agreement, potentially ending the union's 6-week-long strike against the Detroit-headquartered auto major. The deal, which still requires approval from the 57,000 workers at Ford, includes a 25% general wage increase over 4 years and an immediate 11% wage increase for all union members. U.S. President Joe Biden applauded the agreement, emphasizing the importance of employers and employees working together for the benefit of businesses and workers alike. With the deal in place, the union could leverage it to negotiate similar contracts with GM and Stellantis. In a wave of ongoing strikes, the U.S. continues to grapple with industrial unrest, with hotel workers becoming the latest group after Hollywood writers and auto strikes to sit behind picket lines demanding fair treatment and equal rights. These strikes shed light on widespread issues such as poor working conditions and healthcare deficiencies, challenging the American dream, which appears more elusive than ever. Hotel workers in the city of Los Angeles held a sit-in for demanding higher wages and better working conditions. The strike included a dozen more hotels. The workers said that they were fighting for fair wages, healthcare and dignity. The Unite Here Local 11, which represents around 15,000 workers, said that there is still work to be done with the remaining hotels. Implementation will continue until further agreements are made.
We hope they empathize with us. This is us trying to fight for a living wage to live in Los Angeles. It's getting really, really expensive to live here. We're fighting for pension, we're fighting for healthcare, we're fighting for the American dream. Everything that we were promised to work hard, pay your taxes, and be a good citizen. We just want our contract to be reciprocated. We want to be treated like a human being and treated fairly.
Foxconn founder Terry Gou lies low in Taiwan elections as China tax probe reverberates. He last appeared at a campaign event on Sunday night, the day a Chinese newspaper said authorities had begun a tax probe into Foxconn's operations in China, even though he stepped back from running the world's largest contract manufacturer 4 years ago. Foxconn said in a statement on Sunday that legal compliance was a fundamental principle of its operations and that it would actively cooperate with the relevant units on the related work and operations. After more than 3 weeks of a speakerless House, U.S. Congressman Mike Johnson has finally been elected as a Speaker of the House of Representatives. The prolonged vacancy disrupted Congress's ability to function as Republicans face challenges in reaching a consensus on a nominee. Mike Johnson called up a resolution supporting Israel in his first action as leader of the U.S. House of Representatives. Nick Harper has more on this story.
Well, it's a funny old world, the world of US politics. 36 hours ago, hardly anyone had heard of Mike Johnson. Now, he's been catapulted to fame. And after 22 days, 14 candidates, 4 nominees and 4 floor votes, the House of Representatives once again has a Speaker. And that Speaker is a staunch Conservative from Louisiana. He's also the least experienced Speaker that the House has had in 140 years. He has never served in a senior position. He's never held a full committee chair. But he's now second in line to the President after the Vice President, a very powerful position in Washington. He's also one of the people who pushed conspiracy theories about election fraud after the 2020 presidential election. He backed those Trump claims that the election had been stolen from the former president. But now he's the Speaker of the House. After the last Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, was ousted just over 3 weeks ago. And then, of course, we had days during which Republicans were unable to coalesce around a single candidate that enough of them could back. Johnson's to-do list is particularly long. He has to deal with White House demands for more than $106 billion of funding for Ukraine and Israel in their conflicts. And then there's the looming government shutdown.
This entire group is going to go back to the House floor, and we are going to pass our resolution in support of the nation of Israel.
All of those things will be very difficult for a congressman with little experience, having served in the House for only 6 years. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
The Mexican beach resort of Acapulco continues to reel from the aftermath of Hurricane Otis, which roared into the city early on Wednesday as a rare Category 5 storm. It's one of the strongest to ever hit Mexico's Pacific coast, smashing buildings and vital infrastructure and leaving the city incommunicado and without power. The government has mobilized the military to help clear up the mess, with the main highway connecting Acapulco to Mexico City expected to be fully open by Thursday. The airport for the city of nearly 900,000 people was also closed until further notice. Some climate experts call warming of ocean waters as one of the key contributors to intensifying cyclones. Take a listen.
Otis, has strengthened at really an unprecedented rate, and seeing how quickly it strengthened, warm ocean waters really serve as an important source of fuel for hurricanes. They allow the hurricanes to become more energized and to strengthen really quickly. It's a key component. So having seen, that over recent decades, about 90% of the warming that's been caused by human-caused climate change has gone into our oceans. We've seen those ocean surface temperatures getting warmer. Certainly that was the case for Otis.
But this is by far the strongest hurricane ever to have occurred on this section of the Mexican coast. And so there just isn't really historical context for this. And that's challenging because that's different than other places, even on the east coast of Mexico, the Yucatan Peninsula, anywhere in the Gulf of Mexico, the United States, Florida, Texas, Louisiana. These are all places very accustomed to powerful hurricanes coming on shore.
And now take a look at some more stories making news around the world. Australian police have arrested 7 members of an alleged Chinese crime syndicate, including 4 Chinese nationals, for laundering millions of dollars through one of the country's largest money remitters. The SeaWorld San Diego in the U.S. is celebrating the birth of a female emperor penguin chick for the first time since the year 2010. The U.S. is finalizing protections for Antarctica's emperor penguin under the U.S. Endangered Species Act. In Sderot in southern Israel, few traces of life could be observed between battles as the residents were evacuated by the authorities to prevent casualties from Gaza rocket fire. Dozens gathered in Chile's capital, Santiago, as more than 20 artists performed in a charity concert to raise funds to aid the Palestinians living in Gaza. And still to come on DD India News Hour. England looked to overcome a 24-year wait to beat Sri Lanka in the Cricket World Cup. Goa all set to host the fortnight-long National Games. And Haaland and Mbappe score in wins for Manchester City and PSG in the UEFA Champions League.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action. Stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such changemakers.
Watch Changemakers on DD India.
Highly distinguished women scientists who played a stellar role in successful launch of mission Chandrayaan-3.
Hard work, resilience, and being perfect. The brighter young minds we have, the future is going to be better.
We should capitalize this moment and we should take the children forward. I think they are the future of our country.
There is much more needs to be explored and understood.
These ISRO women luminaries are going to share their experiences, their stories.
How to become a scientist, how to do what to do for the future. They're thinking about all those things.
Sky is not the limits, that is what we have proven now. Now we have to go beyond the sky.
Develop our curiosity. Try to learn the science from the nature.
With the Gaganyaan mission and the upcoming future missions to Mars landing and other things, your people's interaction is really required.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. And now to all the news from the world of sport with Anil Thomas. Anil, all eyes on the national games set to begin in Goa.
Well, the 37th one, after a long time, we saw the 36th in Goa. The 37th follows the next year later. So good news for sportsmen.
Absolutely.
Well, Goa is all set to host the 37th edition of the National Games, and this is for the first time. The Games will be held in Goa from October 26th, that's today, till the 9th of November. Goa has made extensive arrangements in the run-up to the grand opening ceremony that will witness Prime Minister inaugurating the sporting extravaganza. Well, DD India's correspondent Suchitra Bharadwaj will join us a short while from now. Well, Suchitra there with us. Suchitra, how's Goa ready? You know, you've got IFFI around the corner. You've got the 37 National Games. Goa buzz with a lot of activities.
Yes, Anil, Goa is hosting the National Games for the first time after a long wait. You know, we know that they got the hosting rights years ago, but you know, due to various reasons, there were postponements again and again. And finally, Goa is hosting the 2023 National Games, and there's a lot of excitement in Goa. These games are being hosted in 5 cities in Goa, and 28 venues. So, you know, we can see that there are venues all across Goa, and wherever you go in Goa, you will see hoardings related to National Games, and the Goans are really excited about National Games because they are hosting the National Games for the first time after a long wait.
Well, Suchitra, a quick word with regards to, you know, what's the animal, the logo behind you, you know. We see a logo behind you. What's the logo for this, or what's the mascot for this edition of the National Games? And also, you know, how many athletes are expected to be participating in this edition?
Well, the mascot is really popular with the crowd. It's called Moga, and wherever Moga goes, you know, we can see young people taking pictures, taking selfies with Moga. And as far as the athletes are concerned, this edition of the Games, the 2023 edition, is going to be the biggest edition of National Games with more than 10,000 athletes participating. You know, with every edition, the National Games are getting bigger. If we talk about the 2022 edition that was hosted in Gujarat, and we compare the Gujarat and the Goa edition, we have 43 disciplines in this edition and more than 10,000 athletes participating. So it's a very good sign because, you know, National Games are our own mini Olympic Games. So it's great to see these games, you know, get bigger in dimension because, you know, if we want to host Olympic Games one day, it's really important for us that our National Games are organized at a large scale, you know, so that the nation can be prepared to host Olympic Games one day. We have to have experience in hosting big multi-sports events on a large scale.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on the News Hour. Well, moving forward, England captain Joe Butler won the toss and opted to bat against Sri Lanka in the ICC World Cup match being played in Bengaluru. The defending champions have made 3 changes to the squad in a bid to arrest a downside slide. England have brought in Chris Wokes, Moeen Ali and Liam Livingstone, while veteran Angelo Matthews and Lahiru Kumara have been included in the Sri Lankan team. Having won just 1 of the first 4 matches, defending champions England now need to win the rest of the 5 matches if they have any chance of making it to the semi-final. Sri Lanka is also in search of a win to boost their hopes of reaching the semi-finals. England, when reports last came in, were 53 for the loss of 1 wicket. Well, India created history at the ongoing Asian Para Games in China by achieving their best ever medal haul on Thursday. The Indian medals tally has swelled to 73 medals and counting. The country's previous best was 72 medals when they achieved in Indonesia in 2018. India has won 14 medals at the 2010 edition and 33 in 2014. Earlier, India also broke its record for winning the most gold medals in a single edition of the Asian Para Games after Sachin Sarjay Rao Khilari won the gold in the men's shot put F46 event. On to the Asian Para Games in China. Narayan Thakur also won the bronze medal in the men's 100 meters T35 event on Thursday. Thakur registered a timing of 14.37 to secure a podium finish at the event. Well, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi applauded the Indian Para Games contingent for their remarkable feat in achieving the best ever performance. He posted on social media a monumental achievement at the Asian Para Games, with India bagging an unprecedented 73 medals and still going strong, breaking our previous record of 72 medals from the Jakarta Asian Para Games. The momentous occasion embodies the unyielding determination of our athletes. A roaring ovation for our exceptional para-athletes who have etched their names in history, filling every Indian heart with immense joy. Their commitment, tenacity and unwavering drive to excel are truly inspirational. May this landmark accomplishment serve as a guiding light, inspiring future generations. On to football and soccer. European night, UEFA Champions League. Manchester City maintained their perfect Champions League record with a hard-fought win over Young Boys. The scoreline in the end, 3-1. Erling Haaland scored twice in the second half, the first Champions League goal in 6 games, first with a penalty, then with a fine curling event. Reigning champion City dominated proceedings and led in the 48th minute through Manuel Akanji. Then Haaland's 67-minute penalty, followed by the second with 4 minutes remaining, ensured City remained top of Group G with 9 points from 3 games. PSG too managed to win. Kylian Mbappe on target as PSG went top of Group F with a clinical win over AC Milan in the Champions League. Mbappe opened the scoring with against Milan in the 32nd minute. And in the second half, goals from Muami and Lee Kang. 3 full points were taken by PSG, and the hosts are now 2 points above Borussia Dortmund. Well, Newcastle, meanwhile, suffered the first defeat of the Champions League campaign as Borussia Dortmund secured a vital victory on a rain-soaked night at the St. James Park. They managed to win 1-0. Eddie Howe's side started their return to the Europe's Elite tournament in impressive fashion with a draw against AC Milan in San Siro before a memorable thrashing there by the PSG. However, they could not rediscover the same intensity against the German side Dortmund, who managed to overcome this particular English club by a solitary strike. Well, that's all in the field of sports. Back to Ramesh for more updates.
Thank you, Anil. And finally, before we close, the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir is marking the 76th anniversary of its accession to the Union of India. It was on this day in 1947 that the then Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir, Hari Singh, signed the instrument of accession, and J&K became a part of the world's largest democracy. As part of the Halloween celebrations, a new giant Lego pumpkin is being built using more than 50,000 Lego bricks at Windsor in the UK. Called the Pumpkin Patrol, the unit will be responsible for building, cleaning, maintaining and repairing Lego pumpkins of all shapes and sizes every day for a month. That's all for this edition of DD India News. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Ramesh Ramachandran from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.